Hi, it's Michael. I've had this bike, Honda CB300R, now for about 7 months, since the end of March, and put a little bit over 4,500 kilometers on it. So how has it been? I've done a review of the bike initially, but now that I've had really time with it, how is it? So just to contextualize the review, I ride to work a couple of times a week, and then on a Sunday or Saturday I go for a ride outside of the city. And because I live in the belly of a megacity of Toronto, or so-called Greater Toronto area, it's quite a distance for me to get out to the country roads. And so I take highways a lot to skip the city. I also ride on gravel roads, gravel country roads, not true off-roading, but there is gravel in places deep. There are some washboard surfaces, some potholes. And the speed limit here in Ontario is 100 kilometers per hour, or about 60 miles per hour on the highways, and 50 miles per hour or 80 kilometers per hour on the country roads. So, and I am not as an expert rider, just a normal average Joe rider. So just to contextualize this review. And before we get to the riding itself, first we will have a closer look at the bike and the accessories, the things that have been added to it very quickly, and then we will have a look at the riding position, and then we'll go to riding itself. And to summarize the experience with this bike in a very brief sentence, I would say the beauty and the beast. The beauty, the positives, the beast, the negatives, and this will be discussed during the riding portion of this. All right, let's have a look at the bike. Notice the ape bars, and it comes in racing pink. It has slightly off-roadish tires, 80/20. And you can notice it has balance wheels, which are really helpful. The only thing is they are rated only up to 80 kilometers per hour, 50 miles per hour. So when I go on the highway, I have to dismount them. And so I have to come up with some quick release mechanism. But that's about it. So here we go with the proper bike. Here in Canada, Honda sells it in black color only. So these yellow covers were purchased in Europe when I was visiting Prague, and brought over in a suitcase. And of course, makeshift seating pad was done to compensate for the hard seat. And the tires were replaced with 80/20 tires. The front is still Pirelli Scorpion STR tire, and the rear one had to be replaced. This is a Shinko tire. It cost almost half as much as the Pirelli tire, but it seems to be still very good. And otherwise, the pannier stays are SW Motec, and the luggage rack is Hepco and Becker. They don't go very well together. They are the luggage rack is attached with metal ties to the pannier stays. And originally I had Nelson rig nylon panniers here, but due to poor attachment they slid kind of slightly off the bike, and got destroyed, so they were replaced with whatever I had at home. I didn't want to spend more money. So this is a Pelican case that is bolted. It can be locked with a padlock. It is bolted to the pannier stays. As you can see, I don't know, it could be maybe 9 liters in volume, 10 liters or 8 liters, something like that. And I carry a tire repair tools here, I carry some locks, I carry a pack safe net here, so I can lock my riding gear to the bike when I go hiking. And on the other side, I use an old Axiom bicycle pannier that is attached to the pannier stay with a million plastic and metal ties. So far it's been holding well, and it has withstood riding on the highway at 120 kilometers per hour almost. So far so good, and it is actually quite voluminous. It is extremely useful, and of course grip puppies have been put on, foam sleeves for the grips. Highly recommended, inexpensive and very comfy. And that's about it. My body height is 186 centimeters or 6'1". My body weight about 73 kilograms or close to 155 pounds. And as you can see, the riding position is very upright. The handlebars are not very wide. Obviously, it's a small frame bike. The knees are fairly bent, more like on a sportish bike, and reach to the ground when stopped is quite good. For my 32-inch inseam, there is a lot of space left to stand up and to flat foot, and I find the riding position comfortable, and yes, I always wear a high visibility vest when riding. The biggest beast, the biggest negative is the hard seat, and for that reason I could not recommend this bike outright to anybody. What I can recommend is, if you would really like to buy this bike, and there are a lot of positives, then buy the seating pad you like, then go to a park, find a park bench, or go to a forest and find a log and put the seating pad on it and sit on it, and see how long you can sit on it before you start getting antsy, because that's exactly how long you will feel comfortable and content on this bike. Now my butt is quite sensitive to this, so that kind of limits my riding experience. Now if you have an iron butt, maybe it would be okay for you. I would really recommend testing it first. The second beast are the pillion grab handles. They are only slightly shaped, kind of detented pieces of plastic, and so they are suitable for somebody you don't like and you want to lose, or for somebody you like and you want the person to hug you while riding. The third beast is the brake pedal. It has a long travel, and in order to fully stop the bike with the rear brake, then you really have to press the ball of your foot down. It doesn't feel natural, instinctive initially. I got used to it now, but it took a little while. The fourth beast is the battery placement. The battery is under the gas tank. So in order to remove the battery, you have to remove the tank shroud, the plastics that cover the tank. Then you have to unbolt the tank, lift the tank, and then unbolt and pull the battery out. So if you store your bike outside over winter and you need to pull the battery out, then you're going to have a lot of fun with that. The fifth beast is jerky throttle in the first gear, and it's not consistent, it's not the same in all RPMs in the first gear, but sometimes it's very strong, sometimes even the slightest movement of the wrist makes the bike jump forward. Sometimes it almost feels like getting a whiplash. Not so strong, but in that kind of spirit. So it can be difficult to ride smoothly in the first gear. Now the upside of it is that if you can get to control the throttle reasonably well in the first gear for low speed maneuvers, then you can probably control any throttle on any bike quite well. The beast number 6 is the poor design of the dashboard. It seems to look good when you look at it in a showroom or in a photoshopped photograph, but in reality it easily reflects light. So if the sun is coming from a side or from the front, you can hardly see anything there. And also, let's not forget that riders usually wear sunglasses, which make it even more challenging. The dash shows a lot of information. Some of it is very useful and important, maybe, but it also shows some junk. There is the fuel consumption computer. It shows you how much the bike is consuming fuel, but it is highly inaccurate. Mine shows constantly average fuel consumption over 4 liters per 100 kilometers, when in fact it's much less. And the buttons that control the dash are very hard to press with riding gloves. Very hard. It's in fact so annoying, so unpleasant to use that I stopped using them completely. Yes, it has a couple of trip counters, but I stopped using them and I just have it on the odometer, and I take a picture of it before the ride and after the ride, and then I calculate the ridden distance from that. Alright, so the dash looks like something from a Chinese dollar store. Now finally getting to the beauty, to the positive. Now, before listing them, let's keep in mind that this is a $7,000 Canadian bike, so of course that limits its performance and quality and so on. LED lights is the first listed beauty, and that is appreciated, and of course it's becoming standard now, but it's still very nice. The headlight is decently bright. It doesn't shine far enough, so if you do ride outside of the city with this bike, taking care of not overriding the headlight would be important. And what is really appreciated is that the front two turn signals stay on as daylight running lights, and that increases visibility, so that's really nice. The beauty number 2, the looks. Obviously this is subjective. To my eyes, these bikes look really nice, except maybe for the long plastic tail end, and which is kind of now balanced by the luggage rack and by the panniers, so it's not as eye-striking as it is when the bike is naked. But otherwise, the bike looks really nice, and the round headlight is great. The beauty number 3 is the capable engine. Don't underestimate it. It is marketed as a 300, but it fact, it's 286 cc's, apparently 30 horsepower at the crank, and about 26 horsepower at the rear wheel. Don't underestimate it, it's quite capable, and within the Ontario speed limits, it just keeps up with all traffic easily. And I have never so far in those 4,500 kilometers truly needed more horsepower. And my previous bike was, one of my previous bikes was the predecessor to this bike, CB300F, the 2015 version, with the same engine. And again, I cannot say that I ever truly needed more horsepower. Yes, it would be nice for merging on the highway sometimes, and maybe for passing sometimes, but it's not truly needed. And I ride on the highway quite a lot, and it handles it well. Just once I've experienced, and actually it was during one of these rides for this review, on the highway there was a noticeable headwind, and the highway was slightly uphill, and the throttle was pinned wide open, and the bike would not go over 116 kilometers per hour indicated, which the speedo shows about 8% more positive. It would not go any faster, but that was just the time. And while it won't win any drag races with anything, and in fact many modern cars have more power, more acceleration than this bike, it's still quite decent, and especially in the third gear it has enough power to be kind of fun. So no complaints about the power. Beauty number 4, the weight. The weight of a bike affects the entire motorcycling experience. It reflects on where one is willing to go with the motorcycle, what roads to take, where to stop, where to park it, how to park it, the safety, what if it falls down, being able to lift it, what if it falls on you and you are trapped underneath, then what? And of course, handling, especially low-speed handling. This CB300R is the lightest motorcycle on the market that can do highway reasonably. I would almost say even easily, at least to keep up with the traffic, legally going traffic. And here with our speed limits, 100 kilometers per hour or 60 miles per hour on the highway, there are still 3,000 RPMs left to play with, so it's no slouch. Now, of course, in Europe, where your speed limit is undoubtedly 130 kilometers per hour, then this engine would be maxed all the time, which could do it, but it would be very strained. So as to the handling is of course fun, easy, nimble, and this is a great bike to practice low speed maneuvers, and it is forgiving. You can experiment with it, what to do, what you can afford to do during the low speed maneuvers and what you cannot. If you buy a heavier bike, that experimentation is not really possible because it is not forgiving. If you lean it over a certain angle, big bike, it goes down, you cannot hold it up. I tried it with my F750 GS I had last year. You have to be very deliberate, very particulate with a big bike. This small bikes gives you much more freedom to experiment, to practice, and to learn. And as to the mentioned safety, once I had my previous CB300F fell on my right leg. It was on a forest road, almost a trail. It was an access road to a cottage resort, and it was It had short, steep sections of a sandy soil, and it was after a heavy rain. And in one steep down section, the soily sand gave out below my front wheel, and the front wheel slipped. And it's amazing how quickly the bike goes to the ground. Sometimes the gravity can be a bitch. And it fell on my right leg, and I was wearing touring boots, so high boots, leather boots, and it squished my right ankle, and I spent the day limping, but no damage, thank God. But if that would be my later F750 GS, I would not be surprised that an ambulance would have to take me out of there. So lightweight has many advantages. The beauty number 5 is the usability of the mirrors at high speeds. So obviously this is a thumper, so the bike shakes, but the mirrors show good view of what's behind you on the high speed. It's not blurred. And because the handlebars are not very wide, I can see my elbows in the mirrors, in the inside 1/3 of the mirror. Now a more robust, aka fat guy would see more of his body in the mirrors, but they are still quite usable. And now some miscellaneous observations, neither negative nor positive, just simply observations. First, about braking. The bike stops adequately, well enough, especially when you apply the brakes. And emergency braking with 2 fingers on the brake lever, plus the foot pedal, of course, is good enough to stop the bike. It just needs a very strong squeeze, but it's possible with 2 fingers. And of course, brakes are ABS, plus there is traction control. So I do take the bike on gravel roads, and the traction control ABS are not switchable off. So they can be sometimes a nuisance on gravel roads, especially traction control, for example, going uphill on a bumpy section of a gravel road, and as the rear wheel skips on the bumps, the traction control cuts the power. So that's annoying. And fortunately, I haven't had to brake quickly going downhill on a gravel road. I pray I never had to do it with ABS that doesn't switch off. The next, the suspension. The suspension is on the softer side, of course. The front is on the softer side. I'm not an expert on suspensions. I wouldn't call it overly soft in the front. It is not adjustable. In the rear, it's very soft out of the factory. It is adjustable, you just need a special tool for it that apparently Honda is happy to sell. It has 7 settings in the rear, and out of the factory it's on the 3rd softest setting. So it's actually quite good over potholes, over broken roads such as we have in Toronto, but it's not a sports bike, obviously. Now, about starting the engine, many times, even when the engine is warm, it doesn't start right away. My previous bikes, my 2 Vespa scooters, the F750 GS, they started right away as soon as the engine was cranked, even when the engine was cold. With this bike, it takes a little bit of cranking many times, not much, it's like a half a second, it's not a big deal at all. I don't list it as a negative, it's just a curiosity that it takes a little bit of cranking many times to get it going. Okay, in one simple sentence, this is a great bike except for the shitty seat. Honda's complete disregard for human comfort is very unfortunate. With a comfortable seat, this would be even a great tourer, very light, very nimble, and very capable. And that's it for this review. I wish you healthy, safe, and joyful riding, and thanks for watching. Michael out.